Hey guys, it's Miss Manning. I'm going to be teaching you Module 6, Lesson 3, where we're learning to name points using coordinate pairs. Sometimes those are called ordered pairs, and the use of coordinate pairs to plot points. So we're going to be using a coordinate grid, and I know that's something that you've done in the past. So just think of that X and Y axis. The X axis is the horizontal one, meaning it's going side to side. So this would be my X axis here. And then our Y axis is vertical, meaning it's going up and down. So here would be my Y axis. Ooh, those look too similar. Here's Y, here's X. And we need to remember that origin. That origin is where our X and our Y axis intersect. They're perpendicular lines, meaning they run into each other at a 90-degree angle. So this point right here is called our origin. And the ordered pair or the coordinate pair for that is 0, 0. The other thing that I teach my kids for our coordinate pairs is it's X, Y. So X means you're going over to your friend's house, and then the Y means that you're going up to their room. So we're going to go over and up to figure out our coordinate pairs. So it wants us to use this grid to complete these tasks. So task 1 says that we're going to construct the x-axis that passes through points A and B. So remember that x-axis is our horizontal one. So it needs to pass through points A and B. So I'm going to start over here, and luckily we have grid paper. So that's going to try to keep my line as straight as possible. And this right here is our x-axis. Then we're going to construct a perpendicular y-axis that passes through points C and F. So point C and F here. Also remember, perpendicular means that the lines are going to intersect like a T. Parallel is when the lines are traveling in the same direction. Perpendicular is when they intersect with each other, and when they intersect, there's a 90-degree angle. Because lines can intersect and not have a 90-degree angle. This isn't 90 degrees here. Perpendicular means you have that 90-degree angle, so we need it to intersect going perfectly straight up and down. So it goes through C and F, and because we are doing this on our Chromebooks, it's not going to be as straight as we would normally like it, but we will survive. So we've just created our y-axis. And then it says to label the origin as 0. So the origin is going to be the point where x and y intersect. So that would be this point right here is 0. They've given us the coordinates for that. So the coordinates for our origin, again, are 0, 0. That looks like a funny face. The x coordinate of B, so they're telling me B right here, the x coordinate is 5 2/3. So they want us to use that information to label it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5 2/3 and I'm going to convert it to an improper fraction. So I'm going to say I have 5 copies of 3/3 plus my 2/3. So 5 copies of 3/3 is 15/3 plus 2/3, which is 17/3. So here's 3/3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 thirds, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So it is 17/3 right here, or it is known as 5 2/3. So that means this first line here is 1/3. Then the second one is 2/3. This one here, I could label as 3/3, but I could also label 3/3 as 1. So this is 4/3, 5/3, 6/3 right here, but I don't want to label it as 6/3. I want to label it as 2. So 5 1/3, 5 2/3, which is what they told us it was going to be. Now here they said that C on our y-axis is 5 1/3. So that means, change colors here, 5 1/3 is equal to how many thirds? I want it to be that improper fraction. Sorry, it's so shaky. So I need 5 copies of 3/3, and then I need to add that 1/3 to it. So I already know 5 copies of 3/3 is 15/3, and now I just need to add 1, so this becomes 16/3. So 1/3, 2/3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16/3. We were correct. So 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, or 1. 1, 2, 3, 5. And look, 5 1/3. Now, the thing about this is you have to, like when we were talking about area, you were counting the squares and things like that. When we're talking about coordinate grids, we are focused on the actual line itself. So we do want to be labeling that line and not the space in between. So now that we've labeled all of this, we can go on to problem number 2. With number 2, they want us to identify all the points that have an x-coordinate of 3 1/3. So my x-coordinate is going to be along this x-axis here. So I have to find 3 1/3. Here's 3, here's 1/3. So any number, or I'm sorry, any coordinate that would have an x of 3 1/3, well, all of these would. This would be 3 1/3, comma 1/3. This would be 3 1/3, comma 1 2/3. So that they would all have that. So I have point J, I, H, and D. So J, I, H, and D. Then they want all the points that have the y coordinate, which is here, of 2 2/3. So I'm going to go up to 2, 2 1/3, 2 2/3. So any point that would have a y coordinate of 2 2/3. Well, this one would, it would be 0, because we didn't have to go anywhere, 0, comma 2 2/3. This one would be 2/3, comma 2 2/3. So I have points F, E, H, and K. And look at that. H has both. So we can identify H's coordinate grid or coordinate pairs as 3 1/3, comma 2 2/3. Which point is 3 1/3 units above the x-axis? So here's my x-axis. It wants us to go 3 1/3 units above. So 1 unit, 2 units, 3, here's 3 1/3. So I'm going to just draw that line there. Here's 3 1/3. But it also is 2 2/3 units to the right of this x-axis. So this is our y-axis. So we need to go 2 2/3, here's 1/3, 2/3, to the right of it. See where those, my line got out of control. See where those lines intersect? Right here at point G. So it says name the point, but then it says also to give its coordinate pair. Well, they actually gave us the coordinate pair, but they did it in a backwards way. We started drawing this line, which is our y coordinate. So we can't be fooled. We got to go to the origin, and we go over to our friend's house, and we went over 2 2/3. And then we go up to their room, and we went up 3 1/3. Now it's asking us which point is located at 5 1/3 units from the y-axis. So here's our y-axis. It has to be 5 1/3 away. So the 5 1/3 is going to be this line here. What point is it? It's point K. And then which point is located 1 2/3 along the x-axis. So I'm going along this x-axis, and I'm going to go 1 1/3, 2/3. The point that's located there is M. All right, so we're getting into the point where I'm going to help you a little bit, but then I'm going to kind of let you do some of these on your own. So let's start off here with giving the coordinate pair or the ordered pair for each of the points. So we've got to find the ordered pair for K, which is right here. So remember, we've got to give that X first, how many we went over. So I'm going to draw my line down, my X. Hopefully yours is straighter than mine. And then I'm going to do the same thing along my Y to see how much we went up. So we went over 5 1/3. And then we went up, travel over here, 2 1/3, 2 2/3. Don't forget your parentheses that go around to say those two numbers go together. There should be a comma in between there. So you're going to do that for all of these points here. Then you're going to do the opposite. They're going to give you the point, the coordinate pair, and then you have to identify what point it is. So we're going to travel over 1 2/3. So here's 1 1/3, 2/3. So again, I'm going to travel a line up, and I'm only supposed to go up 2/3, so I don't have to draw this line very long. So it's going over 2/3. I'm sorry, we went over it. We're only going up 2/3. So here's 1/3, 2/3. So I'm going to draw again that line, and I'm going to find that they intersect at point M. So a little help, when you see 0, it means you're not traveling on that axis. So here in this one, it means it's 0 on the x-axis. So that means that you are not going over to a friend's house. You're just going up to your room in this case. You're going to go up 2 2/3. But in this one, the 0 is in the y-axis. So that means that you are going to travel over to a friend's house, but you're not going to go up to their room. You're going to stay on the bottom floor. So you need to identify the coordinate pairs here and then identify the points for this one. Down here, they want to know which point has an equal x and y coordinate. So the best way to do that is first to look at the ones that you will have already done and rule them out. So I'm going to assume that you've ruled out all of these points. I don't know what these points are. The other thing that I'm going to assume is that if it's on the x or the y axis, they're not going to have equal ordered pairs unless it's here at the origin. 0, 0. Didn't go up, didn't go over. But that's not one of our points. That's one we put there, but it's not one that they gave us. So which of their points has an equal? Okay, well, J here, that went over 3 1/3, but it only went up 1/3. So those aren't, the x and the y have to be equal. So an example of that might be 2 2/3, comma, 2 2/3. With your exit ticket, make sure that you're reading the directions up here. It's going to tell you where to put your X and Y axis. And then when it tells you to put hash marks, all it means along your X and Y axis is for each grid line, you're going to put a little line on each of your X and Y axes. And then it's going to tell you down here on B where to label your 1, 1. So then you would have to figure out the fractions from here being 0. So a 0 to 1. So imagine it like a number line. If here is 0 and here is 1, and you have 4 hash lines in between, what fraction would that be? And then you're going to plot 2 other points on your exit ticket. Good luck, guys.